Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Q&A session with Citizen Remote. I'm joined today by our team, our Mexican team, Mildred Palares. I know I probably already screwed that last name up. It's kind of a running joke that I cannot pronounce anyone's last names, but hopefully you guys can get some insight into some common questions that typically arise with Mexico. We'll talk on the digital nomad visa or the equivalent of the digital nomad visa in Mexico, some updates from that. Mildred, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah. So I think first off, we'll just kind of dive into the digital nomad visa itself. I know it's not technically the digital nomad visa, but it is eligible for remote workers. So maybe you can just kind of elaborate on what the equivalent visa is in Mexico.
Okay. Yes. The thing here with it's not a digital nomad visa. There is not like that name. Is the name of this type of residency because it's a residency. It's economic solvency. So the person needs to prove that they have a constant income or a job or savings or investments to apply for this type of residency in Mexico.
Okay. And so that is going to be obviously very similar to what a digital nomad visa is known as elsewhere, because you need a job, some type of income, passive or not, to be able to apply for that visa. So that economic solvency visa just is a way for people who work remotely and have income to apply and live in Mexico. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. For example, there are two types that you can apply for this kind of residency. One is that if you work for a company, you not need to prove that you work for this company for the last 6 months. You need to show your bank statements. That's one thing. And another option is that you need to show your investments or savings for the last 12 months. So basically, yes, you need to have a constant income because that's another question of many people that ask me like, oh, I sold my house. Yeah, but that's not a constant income. So
Yeah.
you cannot qualify for this option, because they need something that constant. Because once you move, you need to prove that you're still receiving that income at some point.
Yeah, and so that's really important to note is like a lump sum of, hey, I have, 250,000 from my house. That doesn't cut it because they want to know that you're going to be able to continue to make that income moving forward. So that's a really good point to make.
Yes.
And I know that we recently had a conversation about how they've actually updated the monthly income requirement, whether it be passive income from investments or from a job. It was a lot lower. Is there any further updates on that, or maybe you can just elaborate on that for us?
Well, it's really uncertain because, for example, specific in the case in the United States, the Mexican consulates in the USA, for example, there is one that if you prove that you have 2,500 per month after taxes, you can apply. But in general, now you need to prove $4,400 after taxes per month. So it's a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's why I always say in the video call or the consultation that we need to check where the client can go and all the details, because they are very specific.
Yeah. And so just to kind of reiterate, so there are some consulates, or in general, the new update is that it's 4,400 after taxes, USD
Yes, in
equivalent.
general, yes, the
It's
general, yes,
4,400 in tax. Yeah. And so it's kind of
after
funny though
taxes.
that there are different consulates that request different amounts. And so that just kind of shows the complexity and oddness, I guess, of visa applications, because certain consulates might not mandate that much. Is that correct?
Yes, correct. For example, in the case of Canada in Toronto, I think now they are requesting 6,000 Canadian dollars after taxes. So it varies a lot with the exchange rate and the country, and so yeah, it's a bit tricky for how we can prove that. I mean, it's better that to check the city, the nationality of the client, where are the bank accounts located, because that's another thing. Because sometimes they tell me, can I apply in, I don't know, Colombia? Say, yeah, but we need to check if Colombia accepts you because you are not a resident of Colombia, you're a tourist, and usually they only accept, sometimes they accept tourists. But for this specific type of visa, you need to apostille or legalize your bank statements, translate into Spanish, put in the currency of the local currency of that country. So
Okay.
it's better that you apply in your hometown or where are located your bank statement because obviously they will not ask you this if you're applying in another country.
Absolutely. And so that's kind of a good segue into another question, which is where to apply. And so you're suggesting that it's best to do it from a country in which you have residence or your home country. Is that correct?
Where are the bank accounts located? I mean, if you are an American citizen and your bank accounts are in the USA, apply in the USA. If you are a Canadian citizen, but your business, your bank accounts, everything is in the USA, it's better you apply in the USA, uh, like that. I'm not saying it's not possible in other countries, but it's a bit tricky.
It's a bit more
It's not
complex.
impossible. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's true.
Okay.
That's correct.
Well, perfect. Yeah, that's a new one that I haven't heard. Is it's not residency, it's not citizenship, it's where the bank accounts are at. So,
And another thing is the residency, because there are countries that are very specific. Like we only attempt people from that they are national citizens of this country or residents, not tourists. So that's another thing.
okay. All right. And then and I guess one more thing on that is, are you able to apply in Mexico, or then no, obviously not.
For this option, no. In Mexico, the only options that you can apply in Mexico is if you get married to a Mexican citizen or a Mexican resident, or if you have a Mexican son or daughter.
Okay.
That are the only ways that you can apply in Mexico as a tourist.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you need to apply abroad
Okay.
at any Mexican consulate abroad.
Perfect. And we can help with all of those too, correct?
Of course, yeah, 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 yeah.
Perfect.
Where
Um,
means everything. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. And then I guess, like, what would you recommend, like someone who is considering planning this? Obviously, there's a lot to consider based on your location and what you're doing, but like, how much of a timeline would you recommend them applying ahead of time? Like, when should they start this process?
I think like 1 or 2 months before.
Okay. So you can, as long
Yeah,
as you
I
have all the
recommend.
documentation, there's not a whole lot of time you're going to need ahead of time.
No, the thing here is the tricky part of everything is the appointments at the consulates. We assist the clients with this, but that's the tricky part because sometimes all work different. We need to check when which day this consulate open to this kind of residence of visa, for example.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes it's a couple of hours. It's or by email. We don't know. We need to check exactly where the client is going, and usually they give the appointments for the next week or the next 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4. So it's not like I decide the date.
Yeah.
Sometimes we can do. Sometimes they say that's the date we have available. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not something that you can book 6 months ahead of time. It's something that you got to
No.
kind of deal with. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah, depending
Um,
the consulates. Mostly in the USA and Canada are like 1 or 2 months before. But there are consulates, for example, in Europe, um, that we need to book like 2 months in advance. In the case of Netherlands, for example. So
okay. Wow. So it definitely varies. What I'm gathering is it definitely varies from where you're applying for everything. Everything varies. The
yes,
consulates. Okay. And then I guess for the specific, obviously, there are a different amount or different options for visas. So this doesn't apply for all the visas that we could potentially help with, but for the economic solvency visa, the digital nomad equivalent visa, are there dependents allowed to come if they're kids or husband or wife?
yes, yes, yes. Once one of them have the residency, they can. I mean, it's another process
Hmm.
for each person of the family, right? So it's we recommend, for example, that one apply at the consulate and the rest can enter as a tourist in Mexico, and we do the family unit in Mexico. That's possible, but there are nationalities that they need to visa to enter as a tourist too. So it's better that everyone apply at the consulate, depending the case.
Okay. Perfect.
And then something very important, when you have a kid or a son or daughter, it's only until years 18 years old.
Until 18. Yep.
That's it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And does that change if someone is a legal dependent from any disability, that they're still a dependent on someone, or is that not eligible?
It's very weird to prove.
Okay.
It's very complicated. Yes, so the only way is the economic solvency or a work permit.
Perfect. So the main thing is there for dependents, it's either husband or wife or a child under 18.
Yes.
Okay. And then how long is the economic solvency visa awarded? Like, is it 1 year, 5 years?
Okay, the first time is for 1 year, and then it can, at the consulate, it's only one time, and that's it. The first time is 1 year, and then the renewals are always in Mexico, and we can renew for 1, 2, or 3 years. And after that, they will get a permanent. Most of the clients prefer to renew 3 years in advance, so they don't have to renew each year. And the last process is the permanent. Usually, for there are immigration. Now we are talking about the local procedures, the immigration office in Mexico. There are immigration offices in Mexico that they request the bank statements, but there are some that they don't. So depends which immigration office you are going to do the renewal. There are some that they don't. They are not always that they check and not great amounts that you need. You are still receiving money, right?
Yep.
With your bank account, your name, and usually when the last step for the permanent, you don't need to prove anything. I mean, because by law you have 4 years now as a temporary resident, so it's like your right to apply for the permanent residency.
Okay, so that's good to know. So when you're reapplying in country after you've got that initial visa, you have to continue to prove that you're eligible for that visa.
Yes.
Otherwise, after the end of the 4 years, you're eligible for permanent residency.
Yes.
Typically, there's two parts of that process. There's that visa for that initial year. Do you then have to then go into Mexico and obtain that temporary residence permit, or is that visa what that permit is for that first year? Like, how does that look?
Okay. Let me explain you. The first step is that start the process at any Mexican consulate. At the consulate, they will receive a visa. They stamp the visa in the passport, and this visa is for 6 months to travel to Mexico. Once they enter into Mexico, this visa is not valid anymore, and they will receive the residency card. So the important one further on is the residency card.
Perfect. Yeah, and that's with most digital nomad visas. How they operate is you get that visa to get into the country, and then you have to get the temporary residence permit, because the temporary residence permit
Yes.
is what allows you to stay for longer than that 3 month period, and then that's something that kind of goes into taxes and everything. So, kind of speaking on that, 1 year, typically you have to start worrying about taxes after those initial 6 months. Is that the same in Mexico?
No, it's not the same in Mexico because unfortunately we don't have now like a specific law in this that they have to pay taxes. Uh, in my suggestion is if you open a bank account, you need to start to pay taxes in Mexico because there are many people that they open the bank accounts here. They are receiving the money, but they don't pay any taxes. And I don't think it's a good option because at the end it's a Mexican bank and they will check at some point.
Mm-hmm.
So my advice is that if they don't open any bank account, they don't have any issue at all, to be honest.
Okay.
But if they start to receiving that money in that Mexican bank account, yes.
Okay. Well, that's good to know. So there's no double taxation
Yeah.
or anything like that if you're over there for a year
Not
or
really,
something.
but it's better to check with an accountant this part because it's
Absolutely.
very new in many countries, right? This situation.
Mm-hmm.
And in Mexico more because we have a lot of people like live here and they are not paying taxes. So
Yeah.
probably they will change it at some point. I'm pretty sure they will, but for now, that's the information.
Perfect. And the way I always suggest to people is if you want to get that permanent residency or a long-term residency or renew your residency, after that year, you should probably figure out your tax situation and be an
Of
upstanding
course,
citizen in that country because they're going to want to see that. And if they ask for it and you don't have it, that
of
doesn't look
course,
good for the renewal. So,
of course, of course.
okay.
I mean, it's like it's the responsibility at this point, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I guess, for some of those requirements, it doesn't sound like you have to open up a bank account for that first year. Do you have to get any like residency or anything or accommodation, excuse me, for like any certain amount of time?
Not really. It's tricky sometimes to open a bank account. It's not that easy. Many people think like, yeah, I open, but obviously the banks are stricter now, like requesting like photos of the house that you're living, or it's very difficult. Like they ask for a electricity bill, or obviously an Airbnb will not give you an electricity bill, or that kind of things.
Hmm.
But it depends on the bank that you will open the bank account. In case of immigration, they don't really depending the immigration office, but usually they don't check too much because, for example, here in the case of Mexico City, it's a huge city, so they don't really they are going to check if the foreigner is living there. But we recommend that if they put an address, it's an address that is house,
Yeah. Okay.
right? Not a hotel or a building. I mean, for officers or something.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if you get any communication sent to you or anything like that, it's good to get an accommodation for you.
Yeah,
So. Okay, well, that's wonderful. So, I mean, this really did help kind of break down a lot of the general questions. It definitely helped my understanding of the Mexico Economic Solvency Visa, or what we like to call the Digital Nomad Visa, even though it's not necessarily. Is there anything else that you'd like to add for anybody watching this video, or?
well, I think it's important that if they want to move to Mexico, they really receive the correct advice because there are many like, oh, I can go and nothing happens. And we have many foreigners right now are coming illegally and they can switch the situation, because our neighbors is the USA, Central America, and we is the path.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
if you can affect the rest to the country because this is affecting a lot. In both ways, the people can work remotely and the people that they are looking for another opportunities. We are facing right now both things.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to say because it's something that is growing a lot in since 2021.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's such a good point. And I always recommend people can go to a country necessarily and maybe skirt the lines of a gray area here and there, but it can potentially hurt you for longevity of travel. You can get something on your passport that says that for any future immigration, there's so many things that can go wrong. And for me, I mean that's probably half the reason I founded a company about it, but it's something that I really always want to follow the rules, so my passport is always at the highest standing possible. So that's a really good
Of
point,
course.
is use someone such as Citizen Remote and yourself to be able to apply to make sure that you're doing everything appropriately.
Yeah, of course, because that's another thing that is happening. That, for example, many people that, for example, cross come to Mexico, they are not receiving the 180 days that they have as a tourist. They are giving 7 days, 30 days, 90 days, because obviously they see that it's not your first entry and you are back and forth many times.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's another risk. Actually, many clients started to, oh, I feel so afraid I want to do the right thing,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
of this.
Just start off by doing the right thing, especially when your long-term goal is to set up somewhere on a beautiful
Exactly.
Mexican coast for, retirement or
Of
something like
course.
that, or just for the next 10 years. So, perfect. All right. Well, thank you so much, Mildred. This has been fantastic. If anybody wants to get in contact with you, they can obviously go through Citizen Remote and book a consultation directly with you, and we can help them get relocated to Mexico.
Of course. Thank you so much, Tim.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too. Ciao.
Bye.